Last rush in Babylon. Voices catching up. Voices catching up. Watch out, child. Watch out, child. Babylon falling down. Falling down. Society a broken promise. Economies war, citizen whores. Political pimps leaving us flat on our backs. Trading today, waiting for the promised land.
First up, I'm glad to see you here, and I'm glad that I'm here. And if I say anything that you don't agree with, let's just leave it at we don't agree about it, all right?
There's no clear thought being exercised right now in the American public. They're allowing the insanity of the leaders, to make decisions, all right, that really are not in the best interest of the public. They're not in the best interest of the children of the public. They're not in the best interest of the grandchildren of the public. They're not in the best interest of the earth. They're not in the best interest of anyone.
I felt as though someone knocked me unconscious when I entered the world. It's been a lifetime trying to come to. I used to get this idea that I was in the wrong time and the wrong place. I thought that I came here 100 years too late. The 100 years too late was because I used to see this camp on the plains, amongst the trees, by a river. It was a tribal camp, and I felt I was a part of it. It's like these thoughts were memories. Every part was familiar, and I was a part of the whole thing. There was another place, another dream. I can still physically see this camp. It was in the mountains somewhere. And my job was to keep peace with the wolves, keep peace for my people, to make this alliance.
Crazy horse, we hear what you say. One earth, one mother. One does not sell the earth the people walk upon. We are the land. How do we sell our mother? How do we sell the stars? How do we sell the air? Crazy horse, we hear what you say.
The spirit of life is almost non-existent in the perceptual reality of the society that we're in. It's almost non-existent. They got religion, they got civilization, they got military, they got politics, they got all education, they got all the stuff, but they don't have the spirit to live.
I want you to listen to this man speak. His name is John Trudell. I'm a member of the American Indian movement, and I'm from the indigenous nations of the Western Hemisphere. As the indigenous people, we have watched this thing happen on our hemisphere. We have seen what has happened. We have seen them come in and confuse and attack. We understand that the issue is the land, the issue is the earth. We cannot change the political system. We cannot change the economic system. We cannot change the social system until the people control the land, and then we take it out of the hands of that sick minority that chooses to pervert the meaning and the intention of humanity.
There was trouble in Custer, South Dakota yesterday after 200 Indians...
President Johnson transmits the bill to Congress. As Attorney General...
The great lie is that it is civilization. It's not civilized. It has been literally the most bloodthirsty, brutalizing system ever imposed upon this planet. That is not civilization. That's the great lie, is that it represents civilization. That's the great lie. Or if it does represent civilization, and that's truly what civilization is, then the great lie is that civilization is good for us.
The conversations I had with him were explosive in their insights, and they were exciting. I would imagine it was not too dissimilar from what some people feel when they talk to the Dalai Lama. John was way ahead of the game. He said, it's likely this is where the country's going to be on this issue, and this is what the effects are going to be, and he's been right.
From the time I met John, I thought that he had one of the most engaging minds of anybody I had met. He was very charismatic, very focused. With John, there was no middle ground.
John speaks, and there's a simultaneous reaching out. There was a reaching across generations and a reaching across racial divides to say, we're both in the same situation now.
We have lying dormant in us, we have a genetic memory. And in that genetic memory, there's knowledge. There's knowledge in that genetic memory, all right, that goes back to the ancient, to the beginning for us, right? And in this genetic memory, there was a time when we were all tribes. Every human being lived within a tribe. Every human being recognized this reality that the earth was the mother and the sun and the sky was the father. Father, sky, mother, earth. Recognized that in our totality as human beings, all right, our relationship was to that.
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1946. My mom and dad and me lived out in the Brazil Creek district of the Santee Reservation, where my father was from. My grandpa on my mom's side was from Mexico, and he rode with Pancho Villa during the Mexican Revolution. He took my grandma from one of the tribes in Chihuahua, just kidnapped her and took her. After the revolution, they came up to Kansas because he was a wanted man. Kansas was where my mom was born and grew up, and my mom grew up as a Mexican. Growing up, we were poor, but I don't remember wanting for anything or feeling deprived of anything. It was a good world. And then when I was 6 years old, my mom died. I remember seeing my dad crying. He took me to see my mom in this hospital. I remember she gave me grapes, green grapes. She hugged me and kissed me, and then it was time to go. I didn't see her anymore. I didn't understand what had happened, but in some kind of a way, I knew I didn't have a mom anymore. And then God came into the equation, and I didn't like God. I never trusted him.
To God, I hope you don't mind, but I would like to talk
to you.
There are some things we need to straighten out. It's about these Christians. They claim to be from your nation, but man, you should see the things they do all the time, blaming it on you. Raping the earth, lying, taking more than they need in all the forms of the greeds. They say it's God's will. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
We do not mean to be disrespectful.
But you know how it is. My
is.
people have their own ways.
People have their own ways. We never even heard of you until not long ago. Your representative spoke magnificent things of you, which we were willing to believe. But from the way they acted, we know you and we were being deceived. It is time for you to decide what life is worth. We
already remember, but maybe you forgot.
When I was in high school, they drugged me into the principal's office and they told me I had a lot of potential, but that I needed to learn how to study hard and make something of myself. And that's when I quit school, because I realized that we weren't operating on the same level of reality, because you see, I knew that I already was something. I walked out of that principal's office and the schoolhouse door that day. The next door I walked into was the Navy recruiting office.
I was in the service, man. Oh, yeah? No. Decorated.
Yeah, me too, Jimmy. You're not alone.
And you should know, an upside-down flag's a distress signal. Kept a militant bull. Not a militant. I'm a warrior.
The only reason I volunteered for the military was I needed to get away from where I was at. It wasn't about politics, patriotism, or anything else. It was about survival. I was stationed on a destroyer. I did 2 Westpac tours to Vietnam. And it turns out I made the right choice because the Vietnamese didn't have a Navy. I was homeported out of Long Beach, and it was during this time that I met my first wife.
Let's see, we got married in '68. We were living in San Bernardino at the time. And I was working and he was going to school at San Bernardino Valley College. And Alcatraz happened in November. And I remember he said, we're going to Alcatraz. And I said, oh, I don't think so. I have cold feet. He said, put socks on.
For more than 6 months, a band of American Indians has been living without government approval on Alcatraz Island, the rock that used to be a federal penitentiary. And all attempts to get them off have so far failed.
Welcome back. This is Radio Free Alcatraz from Indian Land, Alcatraz Island in California. This is John Trudell speaking for the Indians of all tribes, and for this portion of the show we hear that the government has been practicing a policy of taking what they need from the Indian people. Well, not necessarily what they need, taking what they want from us just about any time that they would like to do so, and they've been doing this through the years, or doing it today. And I would say that a large majority of the people out in the average American people aren't even aware that this is going on. And maybe that's why the government is allowed to get away with this.
The garbage is piling up. The lighthouse is broken. But they say it's no worse than living on a typical Indian reservation.
This is a country where all men are created equal, and it's the land of the free, and the home of truth and justice and liberty for all. Well, we want to know why that doesn't apply to us. If this is the land of the free, then we want to know why we don't have the respect and dignity that all free men are accorded by other free men.
The government had declared Alcatraz surplus property. Young Indian nationalists, claiming an old treaty right to unneeded federal property, descended on the island 1 year ago today and took it over.
If there's ever going to be a generation of revolutionaries raised, people wanting change, these kids are getting good experience as to what Indian relationship is with the government. Because this has been, like all along the lines here, this has been a very peaceful protest.
We occupied the island in the name of the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. See, and the reality that that treaties are laws, so it was really about law. It was really about a legal issue, not a moral or an ethical issue with the government's responsibilities.
What Alcatraz meant was it meant for the first time we saw young Native people standing up and saying, we have rights. We have rights to the land. We have rights to our own government. And we want to be listened to, and we will be heard.
Now what we have here is the model of our island and how we're going to have it. We will become an international outlet worldwide for authentic Indian art. And this will establish our base income to run the island and our university.
Part of what we're saying on Alcatraz is that besides wanting the deed to the island for our cultural center, that we want to be treated as human beings. We want to be looked upon with respect as equals.
Well, I can understand they might feel that way, but I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that if the federal government felt as though they should come off, that they would come off and pretty fast.
Approximately a month before we were removed, the government called us together for a negotiation and said that they had a new proposal. They would lease us half of the island, and we could have jobs caretaking it. And they would give us $250,000. And we told them no, because it wasn't about that. We wanted them to legally recognize their responsibilities to the Native community, which we were representing. So for us, it was all or nothing. This is what it is that we need to have. And we will settle for nothing else. So they came in on June the 11th, a SOG team, Special Operations Group, a U.S. Marshals, and they took the people that were on the island off the island.
We were negotiating with the government concerning settling the Alcatraz issue, and they guaranteed us that no action would be taken against Alcatraz Indians as long as these negotiations were taking place. And then they turned around and they came out there and they took our people off the island. They called our attorney at 4:30 yesterday afternoon and told him that they would have word concerning the deed to the island. They would have it for us Monday morning. And that's what we were waiting for, and they came in, while they were doing one thing with their left hand, they came in with their right hand. They lied to us.
John Trudell and Richard Oakes, of all the leaders that came and went, during the occupation of Alcatraz were able to articulate our feelings and give a name to what we felt. And the name was independence and sovereignty and freedom and a right to our land.
How does it feel to be here today?
Just reminds me of other worlds. A lot of things have happened since I first came. First boat ride I ever made to this place, many things have happened. And it's like, so I was kind of maybe just remembering some of those things. I mean, I've been to many Alcatrazes since 1969.
Prototype people, rigid suit trolls near brain dead, under for spacious skies gathering storm clouds, rule of law, a falling axe in stormtroopers' hands, cruel plasticivers claim God for their side, making up stories with places for meanings to hide. Dracula drinks deeply while nourishing his trap, the love of mankind in alluring narcotic rap. Baby. Sex does love, sex is life.
All through the course of the years of all of this, all I did was talk, you know? And they cracked down hard just for that.
Sunrise, new dawn embracing, long time history, long time future, looking beyond industrial limits. Sunrise, ancient prayers answering, spirits hunted by technologic slavers, good medicine, seeing through the machine. Sunrise, natural rhythm continuing. Lessons in natural law. Oppressors trapped in themselves. Sunrise, an eternal prophecy. Conducting daily ritual. Remembering the ceremony, life.
Thought it was something that N. Scott Momaday said in an interview about the buffalo, that there isn't any one thing in our culture, white culture, that reflects the kind of power of the buffalo in its total use and symbolism in the spiritual world, as well as literally covering every aspect of the lives of people of those times. And there's something about John's art, I think, that's worthy to be compared to that.
I published a book of poems. It's called Living in Reality, Songs Called Poems. And that was in the fall of 1982. And then I had an opportunity to record, make a tape, a cassette tape, where I put the poetry with the traditional tribal songs.
Endure, the people cry out. Tears of anger, tears of sorrow. Living in reality, calling us red Indians, we have been the colors on a chameleon's back. Changing with time, altering the larger pattern, surviving genocide because we have to.
I first was aware of John through political activism, and then subsequently became aware that there was an additional part to John as a poet, artist, spokesperson, spiritualist. And I think the connection, I had very strong identification with John's willingness to commit his life to a cause that was so dangerous and would require such sacrifice, because I was so taken by the fact that the U.S. government would try to dismantle and decimate a culture by first stripping them of their spirit.
We wonder what type of a condition exists when the people have been afraid to speak their minds. We wonder what kind of a condition exists when the people's spirit is at such a low place, that they knowingly and they willingly go around and accept that they are governed by liars and exploiters. The American people laugh about how you can't trust a politician. The people must take the political system under their control.
During that period of time, the native consciousness was waking up. That native spirit was starting to fire up. Alcatraz happened, and during that same time, AIM in particular was evolving out of Minnesota.
John made a transition from Alcatraz to being involved very directly and very visibly in the American Indian movement.
AIM was really again, it was about community, right? It was about the way of the tribe. You know, I mean, and you know, again, it was about a legal issue, because from the political end, AIM's statement was same as Indians of all tribes, Alcatraz. You have a legal responsibility. Treaties are laws. By the Constitution, they're laws.
But when I look at America now, going back to the treaty, this American generation, they don't look at the treaty as having any validity. All right, well, I'm going to say that was an agreement made between their ancestors and my ancestors. And when they break that treaty like that, they're telling me they have no spiritual connection to their past, no respect for their past. And if we want to get down to the realities of checking legislation that's been passed in the U.S. Congress and doing our homework on agencies such as the Federal Bureau of Investigation and these energy mobilization boards, we'll find out that they now have all the rights and the individuals are losing the rights. And it's almost sometimes I feel like a war is being waged against us.
They lied to you, they confused you, they told you that you had freedom and democracy, but you go back, you read your Constitution, you read your Declaration of Independence, and you will see that the only people who could decide these freedoms were white males who owned property, and all the rest of us were excluded.
And I think they saw him as a tremendous threat, simply because he was able to mobilize people, motivate people, inspire people, and get them to follow him.
For 500 years we have had to fight and resist and struggle against the oppressor who has come. They called us Indians and said that we didn't have any rights. They called us Indians and said that we were no longer people. They called us Indians and they used their manifest destiny mentality to justify their genocide against us.
In the 1960s, the FBI launched what it called the COINTELPRO program, the counterintelligence program. And essentially it was a program within the FBI to infiltrate the civil rights movement and to destroy it from within and from without. In the late 60s, very early 70s, when activists within the Indian community started vocalizing their situation with regard to deprivations of human and civil rights, the FBI shifted or used the same basic tactics to go after AIM.
Several groups of American Indians have banded together to march on the nation's capital for a redress of some long-standing grievances. But the president refused to see them. Congress is out of session, so today they took their caravan to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. ABC's Bill Matney reports.
They came from as far away as the Pacific Northwest and as nearby as North Carolina, American Indians from 250 tribes. They came to the capital as a trail of broken treaties caravan, they said, to reclaim their lands and their rivers and, most of all, their dignity. They descended on the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the agency they want abolished. There were more than 500 Indians in the caravan today, with thousands more expected tomorrow. They were angry and they wanted answers.
We occupied the national headquarters of the BIA. It was a big embarrassment And we're talking about Nixon and Ehrlichman and Haldeman and John Mitchell, and if people remember history, well, just think of Ashcroft and Bush and Wolfowitz, and you're talking about these same mentalities. But we occupied that building and had it for a week. And the government was in a bind. See, and we pushed it pretty far. But we were pushing it again about the way the BIA was treating the people in the communities. We had a 20-point position paper that we were presenting to the government about ways that they can enact the treaty laws.
And I remember traveling back from D.C. when the occupation ended at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, traveling back out towards West Country, and I'd stayed on with the caravans that traveled through South Dakota, and I remember when we got to Pine Ridge, Dickie Wilson, the chairman, took a stance that he was going to keep the American Indian movement off the reservation however he could.
In February 1973, AIM and the traditional people of Pine Ridge occupied the village of Wounded Knee, taking a stand for the legal rights of the Lakota people under the Fort Laramie Treaty Law of 1868.
The standoff continues at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. 200 Indians still occupy that small community, and federal marshals still surround them. There were no incidents and no shooting today, fortunately. But there has been a lot of talking in a teepee, talking between the Indians and government lawyers to try to find a way to end the impasse peacefully.
AIM picked Wounded Knee, but the government picked South Dakota. All right? Because it shut down the momentum of AIM.
The FBI noted that one of the things that AIM was shifting its direction towards was protecting the earth. At the same time, some 27 multinational corporations were coming into this region, uranium and oil and other mineral companies, and basically leasing and staking claims throughout the entire Black Hills region. During the same time period, the FBI declared AIM to be one of the most dangerous organizations in the country, and they began discussing the need for paramilitary assaults on what they consider to be certain AIM strongholds.
Pine Ridge, the capital of the reservation, is about 10 miles from Wounded Knee, but it's as tense as the small community which has been held by the militant Indians for 6 days now. The takeover of Wounded
See, one of the things that the American government realized, and they saw this at Alcatraz, and they saw that it was really more pervasive because they saw it in AIM, and that is that the majority of the American citizens agreed with us. Right? They felt some kind of sympathy or understanding. The majority agreed with us, right? That the government was in the wrong in its dealings and treatment of Native peoples. So and to the government, the way the government operates, anytime any grassroots or anytime any group of people start to get popular support, this becomes a threat to the government. AIM got labeled by this Eastland Subcommittee on Un-American Affairs as a terrorist organization. And between 73 and 75, the government with the FBI, they were literally waging a Contra war against now all of the AIM people and traditionalists, the ones who had supported Wounded Knee. They were trying to eliminate this thought.
You could look at the film footage of the news media of FBI paramilitary units engaging in sweeps or patrols, and it looked just like Vietnam. I mean, there was absolutely no difference. There were helicopters, there were armored personnel carriers, there were tanks, there were a lot of military equipment, and FBI agents who looked like they were in combat.
In June 1975, 2 FBI agents were killed on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota.
The community that they launched their attack in was a community of Oglala. In the course of the firefight that took place that day, one of our people, Joseph Stuntz, was killed, and 2 members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation were killed.
And as a result of that, 3 men stood trial for it, Dino Butler and Bob Robidoux and Pelletier. Then that's when they kind of just put the finishing touches on the momentum that AIM had.
We had that Oglala firefight, and afterwards we got arrested, He was the only one that came forward. Him and Neelock and Tina came to our defense and helped organize in the communities.
And when we got to town and checked into this hotel and I turned on the news, and all the news in the local stations was really talking about, there were going to be terrorist attacks, that the AIM militants were coming, they were going to be disruptive, they needed to have a lot more security, and so they had created this paranoid climate. See, and all the media was carrying it. It's almost like, like the government was writing it. So we were not liked in that town. So we had a press conference, and right away and challenged them on it. Here are women and kids, and they met with every church group. They met with every women's organization, every community organization. Met and just explained, look, we're just here. We don't want to be, you don't want us here. We don't want to be here. We just want the opportunity. And basically, through that kind of networking, and then the reality that hold it, these aren't Indians, they're human beings. See, that reality was emerging in Cedar Rapids. And this juror got to see it, because we had a positive influence in that community. And in the end, when push came to shove, on the jury deciding on guilt or innocence, this played a role. So for that whole period of time, from the National Indian Youth Council to AIM and all Indians of all tribes and fishermen, that whole period of time, that activist period of time, that movement period of time, I think that the lasting effect of it was that it made the spirit of the people stronger.
Early on, it was really a struggle of the women having a voice, within the American Indian movement. And, when I look back now and look at John's relationship with Annie Mae, John's relationship with Neelock Butler and Kamuk and others, it's like John was the voice of reason. John was there for all of our sisters.
See the woman. She has a young face, an old face. She carries herself well in all ages. She survives all man has done.
Me and Tina were a good team. I met her around the end of '71. By '72, we had teamed up, and I worked a lot of Oklahoma with her.
She was always very sensitive and very concerned about people. And during the time she was at Tulsa University, she met John Trudell. He was there doing he was a speaking tour or something. She was just taken by what John was doing and fell in love with him.
She was really an intelligent person. She got it. She's one of those people that get it, right? And I think in many ways we complemented each other very well, right? And
And just by her being who she is, she gave me credibility in the worlds that I wouldn't normally have it in, right? Because I was one of them wild guys, right? Her major in college was psychology. You know, it's almost like she knew she was going to meet me. So she already had her self-defense. And Tina had she told me that she would stay with me on the road for no more than 2 years. Then she wanted to go home because home is where, for her, this is where it needed to be done.
Tina had a way with our old ones. She knew how special they were, and she'd make it a point to go and visit them and to hear what they had to share. She was one of those people who took time to go and visit others. And with her humble way and gentleness, they were just always so happy to see her.
Undercurrent. The way heat breathes. Dancing sweet. Our introduction was our seduction.
Dancing sweet.
When touch touches. Magic from beyond. That electric feeling. The messenger.
It's really hard to talk about Tina. It's really hard to, you know, it's still a wound that's not healed.
John at that time was in doing his thing on the national level. They had the shootout at Oglala. You know, it was still a hot time. It was still a hot time, and things were secretive, and people looking over their shoulders. Where John lived, where Tina lived, was always being cased. You know, there's people saying that there were suits driving by all the time, and you know, checking it out, and they were always being watched.
What we were doing in Duck Valley on her reservation, it seriously was a major thing for the system at that time. Because we were really, the tribe was taking jurisdiction without asking for permission. The tribe was acting like a tribal government, sovereign. And there had been conflicts with the federal government because of this. You know, Tina was a target because the threat that Tina posed to them, all right, is that she was from there, she was born there, she grew up there, they knew her, they trusted her, she was well educated, and she understood their system. For anyone to think that what happened to her as specifically something just related to me, it minimizes who she is.
I burned the American flag in protest of the way that the American government treats the indigenous Indian people in the United States of America. I burned the American flag as an act of protest against the injustice that is being extended against all of the people. We burned the American flag because it has been desecrated. And it's the only proper way to dispose of the American flag after desecration is to burn it. We feel that racism and sexism and class separation, that these are desecrations. And we feel that the American flag does not represent integrity, honor, justice, or truth.
He was warned in jail that his family could be in danger, you know, the way he's carrying on.
About 2 o'clock in the morning, my dad came over he was pounding on the back door. And we opened the door, and he was just standing there. And what struck me was his eyes were just sort of gray, it seemed. And he had his pajamas on, and he just said, "There's a fire. The house is burning, and they're all in it."
there was a line of fire across the roof. You know, some people that saw it from a distance, you know, it says maybe that, you know, somebody had torched it that way.
In the fire, the family was trapped in the house, and Tina and her children were killed in the fire, and so was her mother.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs went out there and didn't conduct a very thorough investigation. I don't want to say that the FBI kills innocent kids and children. I just don't want to say that, you know, I don't think, but you never know, you know, you never know.
Tina was pregnant at the time she died, and they had chosen the name Josiah Hawk for the baby, and they put the name of the baby's name right on the headstone. And then the other three, Ricardo, Star, Sunshine, Karma, and Eli, Changing Sun.
I died then. I had to die in order to get through it. And if I can get through it, then maybe I would learn how to live again. Putting my love into the ground like this, putting my love in boxes, putting them into the ground and covering them up, reconnected me to the earth.
I was listening to the voices of life, chanting in unison. Carry on the struggle. The generations surge together in resistance to meet the reality of power. Mother Earth embraces her children in natural beauty to last beyond oppressors' brutality. As the butterfly floats into life, we are the spirit of natural life, which is forever. The power of understanding, real connections to spirit, is meaning our resistance, our struggle, is not sacrifice lost. It is natural energy, properly used. Remember the people. Remember sky and earth. Remember the people have always struggled to live in harmony, in peace. Struggle against selfishness and weakness so the people may live as nations. The old ways are hard. The people have always had to work together. Remember, impatient one. Remember and live. Do not be afraid of truth. Respect, discipline, share your life so the people may live. Honor sky and earth. Honor yourself. Honor your relations. Remember, impatient one, the gentleness of time. Grandmother Moon, we love you. We pray for you, for us, and for the invader who just can't comprehend respect, love, or the balance of life. We do not join the invading madness. From the way they act, it speaks of spirit sadness. Machine money progress is the cause of our common abuse. We see you, grandmother. We feel you. We love you. We know through your reality we will endure. We are one. We pray for you. We pray to you. Grandfathers whispering in the wind, rejoice at the life you are a part of, natural energy bound to natural laws. You will survive this temporary madness imposed upon you. Natural life is longer than oppressors' illusionary insanity. Spirits experience human deeds but need not end. This is just one place of changes. Spirit life is forever if you want. The universe is your home. You can survive here. Do not let them kill you. Keep your spirits strong. For distant stars and distant drums are the memories of spirit infancy. Children of earth, let the spirit live so you can grow in your place in the universe. The ones who knew me, I would like to thank you for putting up with what I never could. It seems the extremes were more than I could bear. Your patience taught me so much. Too many times I learned too slow. At times the understandings were beaten down by insecurity. Your acceptance really was something. The times I hurt myself, bringing it all down on you, you reached out with love and tolerance. You were always there when I needed. You steadied me gently, carrying me into each new day, changing names, changing faces, supporting me, keeping me going.
About 6 months after the fire, I was with Dino Butler in Vancouver. He's the one that took care of me after the fire. And I was really desperate. I didn't know anything, not even what reality was. Anyway, we were there in Canada, driving around, and I was feeling really bad. It was very overcast outside, and these lines came into my head. And something told me to write them down and to not stop writing them. And I started to write my lines. They're called poems, but in reality, they are lines that were given to me to hang on to. These were my hanging on lines. And I know that's real to me, that this is something that Tina gave to me as a parting gift. And somewhere in that haze and smoke, I recognized to follow where this writing would take me, to follow it, to just go with it. Whatever the madness, whatever the extreme I had to bounce around in, to follow the writing, and maybe someday I'd find some kind of center.
This woman, this love, this life we dare to live, this society afraid of what people might see through themselves or somebody else, might see what isn't meant to be hidden. Last time I saw her, Tina smiled. Woman, woman's love, hands so gentle, eyes so wise. Woman touch, I am taken, world so undivided, where the high wind flies, and somewhere a wild horse listens.
I've often thought he was a living example of the line out of one of my songs, the Bobby McGee, where the freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. He had he had very little left to lose after they had taken his family away from him, and I think it made him fearless.
So when I come to Canada asking for political asylum, I come to Canada understanding that my request for political asylum and the people that are traveling with me, that our request for political asylum is not just an illusionary fancy that's in our idea. It's not just an attempt to embarrass the American government. Our request for political asylum is built upon the reality that America is still conducting its genocidal war against the Indian people. Our request for political asylum is based on the reality that you cannot embarrass the American government. You cannot embarrass something that is built and based on greed, violence, and corruption. It cannot be done. We have never really seen the war go away. I mean, if you're dying from the 7th Cavalry's bullets, or if you're dying from induced poverty and racism and class systems and sex systems, all right, and you're dying from alcoholism and poverty, all right, or someone has come in now in the name of maximizing their profit, and they're getting you to work in the mines, the uranium mines, and you're dying from lung cancer, and you're dying from the cancers and the diseases that come out of that. You're dying. It's the same as the bullet killing you, and I see it all as a war. You know, like I've heard a lot of people talk about the theoretical nuclear war. What if it ever comes? Well, you know, let's alter our perspective on that a little bit and say, well,
the nuclear war is here. That's what that dead Navajo uranium miner is. He's a victim of that war. That's what them stillbirths are that came out of 3 Mile Island. That's what the miscarriages and the stillbirths are in Pine Ridge, where the radioactivity's reached into the water.
The nuclear war that is being waged against the people on the Western Hemisphere does not just happen and occur after the uranium has been made into plutonium. It occurs and it begins the day that one of the corporate terrorists decides, well, we're going to take the uranium from these Indians over here. And then in order to get the uranium from under our land, and in order to maximize their profit at the same time, while they are doing this, they use their law enforcement agencies, such as the FBI. They use them as a private standing army for the corporate state, and the FBI comes into our communities and they attack us while they're calling us criminals. And then after they have broken down and they have put our people into the prisons and they have killed our most vocal people, and they have driven our people underground, while they have used the taxpayers, while the corporate state uses the taxpayers' dollars to send its private army to attack us, then when the resistance is beaten down enough, then the corporate state comes in and makes deals with the federal government, and they walk away with all the resources at a very cheap price, because their entire war against us was waged and subsidized by the American people under the name of law and order. So they get it for nothing, and then they turn it around and sell it back to the American people. That is the principle behind maximizing the profit. It is the principle behind colonization.
Diablo Canyon. Today I challenge the nukes. The soldiers of the state placed me in captivity, or so they thought. They bound my wrist in their plastic handcuffs, surrounding me with their plastic minds and faces. They ridiculed me, but I could see through to the ridicule.
The wheel of genocide continues to grind. They can program and sell democracy across the world, the way Hitler sold Nazism, you know. It doesn't change anything. They're industrially insane. No sensitivities to life or what anything is about.
See their powerlessness. It was in the way they dressed and in the way they acted. They viewed me as an enemy, a threat to their rationalizations. I felt pity for them, knowing they will never be free. I was their captain, but my heart was racing through the generations, the memories of eternity. I was beyond their reach. I would be brought to the internment camp to share my time with allies.
Wind, sun.
I met John for the first time when we were doing a couple of gigs around the nuclear issue. Mount Taylor in Grants, New Mexico was the first date, and we were dealing with uranium mining on Native American lands. John really focused it for a large audience, and by combining with the No Nukes movement, I think he brought a connection in the audience and in the press and in the Indian people's consciousness that was so powerful that I don't think that we've ever really been the same.
We got involved in Native politics and environmental work, environmental activism, and Native cultural restoration and stuff. And John was friends and cohorts and a comrade with all of the people we were working with. And so he really stepped in and helped out with our organization, Honor the Earth, that we started with other Native activists. It's kind of like that first glimpse. I always remember I was in my parents' house watching TV, and I was like, who is this man? And then years later, you know, he's a huge influence on me politically and a mentor to me.
I have to ask you this, since it's Columbus Day, does that mean anything to you as a Native person?
I mean, with no disrespect to anyone, I think asking Native people to celebrate Columbus Day is kind of like asking the American people to celebrate Osama bin Laden Day. And I actually think that terrorism arrived on this hemisphere with Columbus, because for us as Native people, the experience that we had was, you know, I mean, how did my land become somebody else's country?
Fair enough.
Columbus. I guess I'll just start with Columbus. See, I have a real problem about all of this. I mean, see, to me, he was like a virus, a disease. But when I think about it, because I spent a lot of time protesting, trying to figure out how to deal with this disease. But I think that we really need to put serious thought into understanding that we're dealing with a disease. You know, it's like there's this predator energy on this planet. And this predator energy feeds upon the essence of the spirit, feeds upon the essence of the human being, the spirit. Now this predator energy can take fossil fuel and other resources out of the earth, turn it into fuel to run a machine system. But in order for there to be a need for that system, and in order for that system to work, they have to mine our minds to get at the essence of our spirit. And the same way the external mining takes place, it pollutes. We see now, people understand how it poisons the environment, the water, the air, pollution. The mining of the essence, the mining of the spirit, mining our minds, the pollution from that is all of the neurotic, distorted, insecure behavior patterns that we develop. That's the pollution. Because in order for this predatory system, this disease, to work, we must not be able to use our minds in a clear, coherent manner. Because if we use our minds in a clear, coherent manner, we will not accept the unacceptable. But it's a disease, lives and travels through the mind, through the generations.
You know, and it's not just the U.S., it's Western civilization. France, England, Germany, they're not, you know, they're not immune to this. They're just as, in their technologic, civilized mindset, they're just as dangerous as the U.S. They're the parents of the Americans. America's their child, so they cannot remove themselves from responsibility for the behavior of their child. So it's not just the U.S. Everyone likes to point it at the U.S. You know, and that's what makes the other countries so dangerous, because they want to pretend it's not them. The United States isn't the only one that has enslaved its citizens as workers. You know, the United States isn't the only one that's feeding off of the mass of the people, and the United States didn't create the idea. It came from here. In the end, what allows this aggressive behavior to continue is the participation of the citizens of the democracies. You know, they'll turn around and they'll condemn the violence of their governments or other systems, but yet they, you know, they'll live off of the fruits of it.
Power is something that emanates from us, from the human being. Human physical being, spirit. And power is about that spirit, about the being, and our relationship to the planet, to the earth, to the universe. It's where our real power connections are. We live in a time where we have been indoctrinated to believe that authority is power. So when we look externally and we see these ones that would feed off of us and control us, they have defined power from the material perception of the human, not of the being. So we look at economic systems as being power, but in reality, an economic system is basically a system of authority. And we look at military systems as being power, but in reality, that's another system of authority. Or religious systems, but these are systems of authority. But we have been programmed into believing that these things are power, and because we have really no influence in these things, no real accessibility to these things, and if we believe they have the power, then it doesn't say much for ourselves. So power really is about our relationship to life.
As one of our philosophers, you know, he's one of our Socrates. He's like Socrates, you know, he thinks and he writes. And he's really analyzed the political system and its ambitions. And we used to have, you know, people like John, you know, centuries ago. But, you know, they're few and far between anymore.
The rains of purification, gently flooding. Memories fill my reason, laughing shadows from yesterday, weeping to wash the spirit. Continue to struggle, resist, Be one with the purification rains. The words, creation's breath of love, reminders of power, committed service for the earth, a people oppressed by the insecurity of the technologic exploiter. The people, the rain, the earth, the wind, struggle together for a common liberty.
But we took a cruise, and he told me he did poetry reading in Northrop Auditorium in Minneapolis. And he had a tape of it, so he put the tape on when we was driving down the road, and he asked me if I would sing a song during one of his poems, you know. So we was cruising along, and I just started singing a song during it, and so he said, hey, would you come and do it in front of some people? You know, let's try it out. November '82, and he sent me a plane ticket to fly to Minneapolis. So I jumped on an airplane, grabbed my drum, and went over there and got there, and geez, shit, it was opening up a Bonnie Raitt concert. It was Northrop Auditorium, and it was packed in there, and oh, man. I remember Bonnie brought us back. She sat us down, and she said, I gave you guys a half hour. I said, but this is a rock and roll crowd. I think maybe you guys should just do, 15 minutes or something. She said, because this is a rock and roll crowd, they can get pretty loud. John said, Bonnie, I can get pretty loud myself. So we did it. And she liked it. She liked it, and I guess she recorded a little bit of it and played some for Jackson. So we went in and a few months later and recorded Tribal Voice.
When I made Tribal Voice, the whole idea was to take spoken word and put it with more natural and indigenous sounds like the drum and the harmonies and the chants, and to take these elements and mix them together and see what we could create that could be reproduced on tape, using the spoken word with the oldest musical form.
Brown earth color woman takes me into the secrets of her size. When I step into the brown of her eyes, I find sight of special dreams, fluttering eyelashes and fluttering hearts, dancing in magic no one understands. When I step into the brown of her eyes, I find the comfort of a friend sharing shelters when only a friend can know too.
I've been doing a lot of reading lately about your transition from political activist to poet to performer, and I'm struck by how many really talented people have rallied around your musical efforts. Bob Dylan called your first cassette with Jesse Ed Davis the album of the year in Rolling Stone. It must be very affirming of your decision to put poetry to music.
To have recognition from these people, or them to look at my work and know that it makes sense to them, and I'm communicating something to people that I've listened to through my life. I mean, these are people that influenced me, and to have them acknowledge me, and however they've acknowledged me, it helped. It's what helped to feed me, to keep it going.
He had found a partner, Jesse Ed Davis, who was a Kiowa from Oklahoma, who came up to him in Long Beach and said, I can help you turn these into songs if you want to do that. And so within a very short time, he showed me like a handful of songs that he'd made with Jesse Ed Davis. And I knew Jesse Ed Davis because he played on my first record. He was a legend when I started making records. He was a guy that I was lucky to get on my record, a guy that anybody would have been, happy to be able to get if they could get him. He had played with Leon Russell and Joe Cocker, and he went on to play with Bob Dylan and John Lennon.
Jesse was funny, he was interesting, bright, one of the most intelligent guys you'd want to meet, and he had a heart of gold.
It's like having Clapton and George Harrison, and just a complete level of soul that the average guy in an average band cannot possibly attain.
And Jesse was, I think, a genius, kind of a musical genius, and at the same time, eventually was a heroin addict.
Peace.
the work he did with John is some of the best work he ever did. It was the thing that spoke directly to his experience. And when he stood up and he came forward to say to John, you know, I can help you turn these into songs, I think he was speaking to their common understanding of what it was to be an Indian in America.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here at the Palomino tonight with this extravaganza. I'm real proud to be playing with John Trudell. I'm real proud to be in India. And this is something I hope that doesn't go by you.
The minute they hooked up, he knew they were brothers. It's, you know, there's certain people that you meet in life that are just like that. You recognize them instantly, even though you've never met before. And that connection will go on throughout eternity.
I wanted the thoughts, spoken word, the music, and the human energy. And I wanted to mix these things in such a way to see if we could create power.
A man, a woman, a sort of love. She was a beautiful woman, but he did a lot of ugly things to turn her world around. In his own way, he loved her too, trying to be his own man, conquer the world when he couldn't. She became his last stand. He was cowboys, she was Indians.
He's a dangerous poet, a visionary, a champion of indigenous people's struggle, a man who's come to give the fear of God and celebration of indigenous vibrations. Are you ready for a blues rock dub poetry experience? Are you ready for the one and the American original, Mr. John Trudell?
Shaman's gonna make a chant, a chant, a chant. Healing in a song, a song, a song. Shaman's gonna make a chant, a chant, a chant. Listen to your heart, your heart, your heart. We didn't need any book. Then the Great Spirit met the great lie. Indians are Jesus, hanging from the cross, hanging from the cross, in the name of their Savior, forcing on us the trinity of the change, guilt, sin, and blame. The trinity of the change, guilt, sin, and blame, hanging from the cross, hanging from the cross. In a delusional grandeur, they lie to us, then lie to themselves about lying to us, about lying to us. Hang from the cross, hang from the cross. In the name of the mother, the child, and the human spirit. Indians are Jesus. Hang from the cross, hang from the cross.
Him driving up in a van with, I don't know if he painted that stuff on the side or not. It's got like prairie with missiles. You know, that it was an old green Chevy van or Dodge van. And he opened the back door of it and all these girls ran out, you know, his daughters came charging out of the back of it. I mean, it seems like there were 6 or 7 daughters that he had, and they just ran around the place.
I remember that he used to pick us up every summer, like no matter what. If he had to like drive there or fly me wherever he was, he would always come and get me, and we would pick up the girls or the girls would meet us, Song and Star, and we would just travel. And he would take us all over to these like different places, sun dances, powwows, people's houses, just places, I feel like, to help us get in touch with who we are.
When we'd go on the road trips with him, we would listen, he would buy oldies on tape, like, you know, from the Billboard collections and stuff, and we would sing along with all the songs. And our two favorites were The Wanderer. That was our song for the car, and Born to Be Wild. Those are our favorites, and we used to just sing along with these songs all the time. I don't know, it was a lot of fun. Those are like my fun memories of traveling. When I was growing up with my mom in Canada, it was really hard because she, you know, there was a lot of drinking going on up there on the res and a lot of hard stuff to deal with growing up, and he totally saved us from that.
He's always been there for me, no matter what. And I have to say I was really difficult when I was young, and I put him through a lot of shit. But he hung in there. And he just stayed right there, and he just always told me, no matter what you do, I will always love you. So I want to love my kids and make them feel as accepted, you know, for being who they are as he did for me.
We are all children of Earth. Kids, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers. We are all children of Earth. The Earth is our mother. Mother Earth is for all of us.
Earth is a living entity. It is not in man's destiny to destroy the earth. That's arrogance. What it is man's destiny to do is destroy civilized man's ability to live with the earth. So we as human beings, if we take responsibility for our lives and live our lives in a coherent manner, as coherent as we possibly can anyway, then we will have an influence into curing this disease. But this earth will not allow, the antibiotic will come in a planetary sense. If it means open up the ozones and let it wipe the civilized man out, then the earth will do that. The earth will continue on, though. See, maybe we should be developing our loyalty to this planet and this earth and our future, our descendants, more than we should be to governing political systems that have created all these problems. See, but now most people are trying to find solutions to the problems, but they're trying to do it within the confined abstractions of democracy. And so if they're not willing to think objectively about our responsibilities towards our own descendants, then they will come up with no solutions. They will only perpetuate the enslavement and feeding. Well, whatever my future is, I'm following the lines. I'm following the lines. Whatever it is I do, whatever unfolds in front of me, or where, you know, I'm gonna follow the lines. Whatever forms they take, you know, I'm following the lines. It's the only, you know, and see how long I get to participate. You know, it's, you know, really that's what it is. I don't, you know, I mean, there are things, you know, I'd like to do. I mean, I'd like to continue to write and do my music and do whatever it is that I'm doing. But in the end, it comes back. She gave me the lines to follow. And as long as I'm here, I won't fall completely if I follow those lines. Because this thing about falling apart, it doesn't go away. Time doesn't have that magic. Distance is one thing, but magic is something else. And there are some falling aparts, there is no magic can fix it.
once upon a dusty reservation, somewhere in the land of Sitting Bull. Johnny Lobo played with fire and dreamed of open spaces, locked inside a heaven gone to hell. All the dreams were gone but not forgotten, murdered like the holy buffalo. Johnny Lobo knew the rules and grew into a warrior, fighting for his people and his soul. Loaded down with lessons that he carried home from Vietnam to Wounded Knee. Johnny Lobo burned the flag he knew had been dishonored, paid the price for thinking he was free. Someone set his house afire, burned it to the ground, with his wife and children locked inside. Later, when the bitter tears were falling to the ashes, something good in Johnny Lobo died. In a darkened corner of a tavern, burning down old memories again, Johnny Lobo stares into the smoke and dreams of clouds running like wild horses with the wind.